Now I had a go at making this is a 2.8 meter sling. It'll end up being about a third of that size, I think, is the general rule. But I had a go at making a 10 meter sling, and that's very interesting. I might have another go at one day. But essentially, I had a foot up on I used the door of a cupboard. It was the only thing I could find substantial enough, and was really straining on it to keep it a solid piece. If this starts to slacken, and if you don't pull this tight enough, it will slacken, and you will get a lot of droops and sort of bends. If your sling starts looking like that, if your sling starts to lose its sort of stiffness and bend a lot, that generally means you're not pulling tight enough. And a couple of short tugs and just generally adjusting it should put you right. What else are we going to talk about? We're talking about the biblical use of slings. Okay. There's a very good video over on the Slingshot channel about with a historian who was investigating slings used in a Roman fort near the border of Scotland. On the border of Scotland, and they have actually found some very interesting bullets. They have found bullets that have a hole in them, like a modern fishing sinker. And they have a couple of theories for this. They theorize that it could have been used for poison. I'm very skeptical about poison on the battlefield. I'm generally very, very. If you tell me that a weapon used poison, I'm normally very quick to doubt that quite heavily. The only weapon that I will fully admit that definitely did use poison would be the Chukong-Nu crossbow. But anyway, that's its own video. So that one theory was poison. I don't really buy that. Poison's not really a battlefield type weapon. That's more of a different type thing. The second theory was it was a launching device, and I was very skeptical about this until, of course, I can't pronounce his name, Jorgen, actually made a sling launching device that was actually extremely plausible, and I think would be perfectly fitting in the ancient world. His video is much better than my description of it. And the third option is the one I want to talk about, which is probably the most plausible, which is that they were a terror type weapon, they were a morale weapon, that they whistled when they moved. And we know of whistling arrows, that the ancients used them. And he has, if you ever want to know what it'd be like to be under fire from slingers, watch his video, because he actually slings at the camera, and it's utterly terrifying. It's much scarier than bullets coming towards a camera, although of course bullets in real life are probably much scarier than coming at a camera. But the noise that these things make when they come towards you is very frightening. It reminded me of the scene in, I believe, Sharpe's. What is that? Is that Sharpe's Siege? No, it's not. It's Sharpe's Sharpe's Ransom. It's the one where he rescues the wife of the British colonel from. In the books, it's actually a woman that he's. I believe in the show too, but in the books it goes in much more detail. It's actually she's actually one of the women that he rescued in, I believe, Sharpe's Escape, and he was actually intimately involved with her, and that's part of the subplot. But he's in charge of a rocket troop, and he's inspecting. Apparently, a rifle officer is inspecting a rocket troop. But anyway, he ends up. They pretty much give up on this rocket troop. It's not very good. So he decides, to jokingly go and sit in the barn that they're trying to shoot at and trying to hit with these rockets. And, I believe the line is the devil's going away from you, but they play merry hell with your morale as they're coming towards you, or something like that. But essentially that's what these slings were. They were fear weapons. They whistled, and that whistling noise coming towards you is terrifying. It would really get at your nerves. Even if you were behind a wall, you're totally safe. Having these things come over every few seconds, because you can sling very fast. You can probably get out. I don't want to say I could probably get out 7 in a minute if you're really taking your time and not doing it. You could probably easily get off 7 slings if you're really taking your time, really aiming to get over the wall. If you're just slinging like a madman, you can probably get 10 or 12. But of course, that's everyone's a bit different. So there's the cup we've made, or I've made. You've watched. Maybe you make one at home. If anyone ever makes a sling at home, do let me know. So there's the cup. And now we simply braid another, I believe, 14 inch. Well, we'll braid this until... Oh, what's happened there? Oh, that's unnecessary anyway, because you tied it off. So one of the securing pieces has come loose. So I'll just take it off, because we don't need it anymore. So I'll subtract 1 from the final result, which of course I put on the screen earlier because I love to create work for myself. Okay, now I'm going to take the anchoring point and put it down 1 on the drawer, loop it over, and that way I can keep it in frame for you guys. Although I do believe I've been working out of frame quite a lot. Anyway. So, this is the easiest part of the sling because we don't have to do any measuring at all. I'll simply go until it matches up roughly, and then the little bits at the end, the tassel, will be left on. Because ancient slingers very often just leave the tassel on. Because, you know, it looks cool. And having a big knobby thing at the end is actually quite good to help control the sling. 2, 4, 5, 6. So we're splitting them into, oh, not 6, sorry, into units of 4. 2, 2, and 2, 2. Again, we try and mix the inside, outside, and the center together to give us a tighter bond. Now, okay, so what else can I talk about? Slings or ancient warfare or something like that. You could use slings to spread fires. You could heat up pieces of clay. Fire arrows and that sort of stuff weren't really used. They were very rare. Fire arrows aren't a very good idea, but you heat up clay very, very hot in not a lot of time with no real specialist equipment. And you could sling hot clay pots onto thatch roofs, and that would cause a lot of trouble. And yes, big hot clay things could be slung from slings, especially staff slings. That'd be more of a staff sling type deal. But a staff sling is essentially just this, with a stick on the end of it. The construction for these things is exactly the same, of course, except for the staff. I would like to make a shield, even if it is just a cheap sort of balsa wood, not balsa wood, a cheap sort of plywood shield. A balsa wood shield would be worse than useless. But a cheap plywood shield, I have a whole bunch of plywood in there that was used to make the walls for the donga. So I should get some of that out, and I do have a forge sitting there that I should set up again and make a sort of shield boss. They're not too hard to make, relatively easy. Could just make them out of wood. And I would like to have a go at slinging with a shield. And who knows, maybe I'll figure out a way to film that. So what do I use for ammunition? Well, I have a lot of clay dirt around here, a lot of clay dirt, well, on the farm here. So clay dirt is really good. You can leave it out in the sun. You don't have to do anything with it. You just sort of leave it out in the sun to dry a little bit, and it'll shatter on impact, and you don't hit it with the mower. You don't create a lot of hazards that people are going to trip over. Clay dirt's good. Chalk is good. I do not have any chalk around me here. Rocks are alright. Rocks are good if you want to get the actual historical vibe. Although you do have to be very, very careful about where you sling rocks, because, you know, it is still manslaughter if you kill someone while you're trying to have fun with a sling, so be very, very careful with rocks. Fruit, rotten fruit is something I sling quite a lot. We have, there's a big fruit tree here, big mandarin tree, and grubs get in the fruit, or, you know, it just rots or something like that. And so you might have 3 or 4 rotten mandarins sitting on the ground at the end of the week. So I go and pick them up and have a sling with them. It's a bit of fun. There is quite a difference between how far you can sling a sort of a rotten piece of mandarin or a proper rock. So as you can see, this is taken, I don't know, 30 minutes to do, and that's with me sort of dicking around and talking a fair bit and mucking around. If you really sit down and set your mind to it, you can make a sling in 20 minutes. And slingers would carry quite a lot of slings. They would wear their slings as headbands. They would wear them as belts. They would wear them all around their body. So yeah, they would wear them as headbands, wear them as belts. Slings can break, but they don't snap. Like, slings don't snap. What they do is they'll sort of the joints here where the cup is, the joints will fray. The joints will loosen. Sometimes the sling will just it'll stretch to the point where it sort of slackens a little bit. These aren't very, jute's not very elasticy. If you use an elastic material like nylon, that's not going to work as well. But basically what happens is your sling sort of stretches a little bit too far and it doesn't quite get back to where it used to be. So, which is a very easy thing to fix. But you don't want to be doing it while people are throwing javelins or slinging stones at you. So you just, tuck that sling away, and you take your headband off and you start slinging again. You could also have different types of sling, different lengths of sling. I've got quite a few different lengths of sling. This is sort of the generic standard length. I've got ones which are double the arm length. I've got ones which are double the cup length for sort of lobbing bigger things. That was sort of my. I did a little bit of an experiment earlier earlier a couple of months ago, just to see if it was actually possible to lob sort of these clay pots that we often hear about in the stories. Yep, it's perfectly viable. You just need a bigger cup on the sling. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom thing, which you can't see. Whoa. Oh, there I am, showing off my... I've been told this is actually quite a good jacket. It's a bamboo. I picked it up for $8 in an op shop one day. Apparently it's quite a good vest. I really like it. It's great. It's got the pockets. It's got everything. Yeah, it's fantastic. I didn't want to wear the big jacket because it was going to get in the way of this thing, and it makes quite a lot of noise. It's got a very good liner on it. So I'm getting towards the end, and you're probably bored to tears, but you're going to stick around because, I don't know, you want to see what a sling looks like at the end of it, and you don't want to use Google Images. So, getting towards the end, this is a bit where you can't be slack. So you can't let the sling get slack at the end, or you're really going to have a droopy looking thing. And it's going to wear out much quicker than it would normally otherwise wear out. So we'll unhook it, and to check the length, all we're going to do is match up the cup, and yep, that works. It's a tad longer. So we see I've been a bit overzealous with my. What we would see if I could stretch it out a little bit. I've been a bit tad overzealous. So all I do, simply pinch it off, and we'll unravel this bit of sling here. I do apologise for not being in frame. I'm looking at this thing upside down and not paying as much attention to it as I should. So was this the only way to make a sling? Nope, there were plenty of other ways to make slings. You could just get leather straps, made perfectly good slings. Not as good as this, but they worked. Quite a few wargame miniatures actually just show sort of leather strap type deals, because you don't really want to sculpt this onto a miniature. It'd be quite hard unless you're making a very fancy miniature. So that's much better. Okay, so you see we have this tassely bit here, and I deliberately made these aren't really 240, I think I made these about 260 because I didn't want to screw it up and film a 30-40 minute video with an impotent little tail at the end. So to make these into a thing, just simply wind it around and you just put it through. I don't know what kind of knot that's called. I was not in the Boy Scouts. I do not know how to do knots or that sort of stuff outside of just basic fishing knots. But you sort of pull it down, make sure it's covers the sort of end like that, and that'll hold. Doesn't look so good, so we'll do a couple more. And I generally like to have a very substantial thing to hold on to because I've got very weird, meaty, weird little hands here. Hands are actually quite small, so I like to have a very substantial thing to grip when I make my slings. Okay, now what we do is we go back, so that is the end of the sling, something to sort of hold on to, and you'll see that more when I do a video on how to use slings. So now what we're going to do is go back and cut off these working tassels. I leave the knots just for extra security. I just cut these little tassels off. So we will get our universal multi-tool, also known as a Bowie knife. Of course, oh, what's that? Feedback noise. Get rid of that. Of course, named after Jim Bowie, not Bowie, Bowie. And Jim Bowie, of course, famous for inventing the Bowie knife, for being a knife fighter, and for dying at the Alamo. He died sick in his bed at the Alamo. I'm not advocating any safety procedures you see here. Oh, I need to sharpen this. Anyway. He, of course, died sick in his bed, probably with rheumatism or pneumonia. So what do they call it? Consumption. Would have been tuberculosis, I believe it was. It's often called consumption. Now, you don't want to make it too short because then you can't tighten it. But just to whack the sort of end bits off. Yes, so the Alamo, of course, very famous engagement. Don't need to go into it here. Everyone knows about the Alamo. The 2004 movie is very good, with the cast that is in that. Very good movie. and the battle scene at the end is actually very, very good. Thankfully, it's quite an easy one to do on the tabletop because the Texans weren't wearing a whole lot of uniforms, and the Mexicans were wearing French uniforms, which makes it quite easy if you're like me and you have a lot of French to tell yourself that one day you're going to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff to use as the Texans. But of course, you've been saying that for 5 years now and you haven't done anything about it, so, well, I really need to sharpen this. Anyway, remember, a blunt tool is always more dangerous than a sharp tool, because you can slip and hurt yourself, but we should be alright. It's not too bad. If it was any worse, I wouldn't be using it. I will do a video on this Bowie knife and this other Bowie knife that I have. Where is it? Here. I believe this one's called the Ambassador. These came as so I bought these at the same time. This one's got quite good sort of inlaid thing. I believe they're both from Pakistan or something. Pakistan actually does quite good tools. I bought my forging hammers from Pakistan. What I don't like about this knife is that it has no sort of guard between your fingers and the blade, and then it is quite easy to sort of ride up. If you go into something, you can ride up onto the blade here, which is quite sharp. So this one is more of a decorative thing. It's more of a cutting type knife, but it does look cool. So I always keep that there. This knife's always handy. And I'll just whack this last bit off. So I will do a video about on cross guards on knives and the kinds that I prefer. So there we have our sling, and that's the end piece and the finger loop. Again, I'll tidy this up before we actually start using it, or you can leave it as is, and the cup and other end piece. So I'm going to reposition the camera and put it back to where it normally is, and we'll do a wrap up. So from this little thing, we only used hardly any of it. This has got half a dozen slings at least, even if I decide to make some ridiculous ones, and I might actually make a 10-meter sling just to see how it goes. Maybe more of a sort of trebuchet type deal, but I'll give that a go over the next few days. As you can see, this was dead easy. I think it took 30 minutes with a whole bunch of setup time, a whole bunch of repositioning, a whole bunch of other stuff. I'll tuck my hair back for safety reasons, but I'll get it out because, yeah, luscious and might as well show it off. So this is the sling that we've made. I'm trying to reposition it so that the symbols that I can see on the camera won't be there in the video, but of course they won't be anyway. So here's the sling that I've made. It's got the little tassel at the end. Jute, probably historical material. As you can see, it's got this wispy sort of fly focus on the thing. Yeah, you can see it's sort of wispy. You can buy this at your Home Depot type place. I bought it at Bunnings in Australia. It was sort of like Home Depot but more incompetent. You can buy it. I've actually seen this in my local IGA, my local corner shop, and your local Woolworths, that sort of thing. They'll all have jute string normally in the gardening section, or for me it was next to the super glue and the engine oil cleaner thing. So that's the slings. You can get coloured string. I'm actually looking at dyeing some jute string. So I'll dye some jute string and make some really colourful slings and I don't know, do something with them, display them behind me. I'm actually looking at changing that to something better, but that's nothing to do with slings. Stay tuned for the next video. This might be a 2-part or a 3-part video depending on how editing. My computer does not seem to like editing anything over half an hour. It crashes during the export phase. So this might be 2 videos. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your patience. I hope you've actually learned something, or I don't know, been entertained for at least a half hour. I will be doing an actual practical video with this exact sling. I'll film that sometime tomorrow or during the week sometime when I get a chance. I'll also be making a 10-meter sling, and I'm also going to be doing a video very soon on, I believe I mentioned it, Operation Anthropod, Anthro something, the Czech assassination of Reinhard in the Second World War. So stay tuned for that. Or maybe that's not your cup of tea, in which case check back later because something will be. If you have any suggestions, pop them in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you have had a good time. Remember to check back in sort of every now and then. Just subscribe and hit the little bell, and it should tell you whenever I upload a video. And yes, I hope you had fun watching me make slings, because I'm going to make a monster sling and show you guys just how far we can push this ancient technology. And we'll see how we go. So thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and make sure you leave a comment below. Thank you.